Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the 49th line. My name is Logan, and today we're going to be breaking down the political circus around the pipeline deal that just got voted down in the House of Commons. Because once again, the Liberal government is saying one thing and doing the complete opposite when it really counts. This week, the Conservatives brought forward a simple, clear motion: support a West Coast pipeline project. The same project included Mark Carney's own agreement with Danielle Smith of Alberta, a pipeline Carney publicly supported, a pipeline he said would boost Canadian energy, create jobs, and strengthen the economy, and then increase Canada's global leverage. But when it came to time to put that down on support on paper, when the Liberals had to vote, they voted no. Once again, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't confusion. This was a deliberate political choice. Here's what Canadians need to notice. The Liberals are now saying they support a pipeline in principle. They just don't support this motion. Their explanation is absolutely ridiculous. They claim that Conservatives didn't include every single detail from Carney's original MOU, things like carbon capture requirements and consolation language. But let's be honest here. That's political cover, all right? If a government truly supports a project, they vote yes. They don't hide behind wording. They don't twist themselves into knots explaining why their public support disappears once they step into Parliament. This wasn't about missing details. This was about saving face with environmental activists, downtown Liberal voters, and the climate lobby. And that brings us to Mark Carney. Carney wants to look like the reasonable, business-friendly Liberal, the guy who understands energy, finance, and investment, the adult in the room, essentially. But this week exposed the gap between his words and what his party actually does. He signed the MOU, he endorsed the pipeline, he told Canadians to support it, and then the second Conservatives put it to a vote, suddenly, the Liberals are allergic to their own plan. This is the classic Liberal move: support something in theory and oppose it in practice. This vote reveals three major things. First, the Liberal Party is terrified of real energy development. They talk about supporting workers, but when Alberta needs support or when a pipeline needs approval, they fold. Second, the caucus is split. One side wants no pipelines, no tankers, no oil ever. The leadership pretends to be balanced. The result is paralysis. Third, Canada's credibility as an energy nation is fading. Investors are seeing these votes. Provinces are seeing these votes, and our allies are seeing these votes. Every time Ottawa rejects a serious project, we hand jobs, investment, and strategic advantage to other countries. This isn't climate policy. This is self-sabotage. So what now? That's a perfectly reasonable question, right? The Liberals want Canadians to believe that they're not against the pipeline. They're just not against how the motion was written. But Canadians can see right through that. This isn't about a sentence in the motion. This is about the political optics, not nation building. Canada needs leadership that actually brings things and builds things. Leadership that says yes to opportunity. Leadership that stands with its workers, not the activists. And leaderships that stop hiding behind excuses when it's time to deliver. Right now, this government isn't offering any of that. They just keep complaining about carbon tax, carbon this, carbon that, pollution, blah, blah, blah. We've had enough. Enough of the carbon talk, all right? Let's get into some news headlines that our friends over, or not our friends, but the biased political media outlets produced on CBC this week. Posted on December 9th. Liberals vote against Poilievre's pipeline motion, calling it immature and an insult. Give me a break. The Liberal government voted against Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's motion Tuesday, calling for an oil pipeline to the Pacific. But ministers insisted it doesn't mean Ottawa has given up on the memorandum of understanding signed with Alberta last month. Poilievre's motion, which lifts some of the language included in the agreement brokered between Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, called for MPs to back at least one pipeline that moves 1 million barrels of Alberta bitumen to coast for exports to Asia. The motion was defeated 196 to 139, with the Bloc, NDP, and Greens voting with the Liberals. Surprise, surprise. The Conservatives brought forward this non-binding motion to show division in the Liberal caucus on the issue. A divide, the opposition says, puts the possibility of a pipeline at risk. Yeah, we'll never get one with the Liberal government. We need the Conservatives. In an interview with CBC News on Sunday, Pierre Poilievre said this vote was designed to force Carney to put up or shut up and prove to Canadians he's serious about building a pipeline. With some Liberal MPs skittish, Poilievre also framed this motion as a chance for the Prime Minister to shut down and what he called his Keep It in the Ground caucus. Speaking in the House of Commons Tuesday, Pierre Poilievre said his motion, which he later amended to include a reference to working with Indigenous peoples and BC, uses wording right out of the Prime Minister's MOU to make it easy for him to vote yes. And surprise, surprise, he still voted no. All right, I think we got one here with a video. This is from Global News. Let's see what they're saying.
Discover the 2026 Honda Civic Hybrid. The crossroads of power and efficiency. It's Canadian built with impressive performance and ready to redefine your drive.
Let's build a pipeline.
Most Conservatives aren't hiding their position, leading Pierre Poilievre to try and put the squeeze on the Liberals to show their hand.
Will, in the spirit of Christmas, Liberals admit they were wrong, vote for their own wording, approve a pipeline, and get rid of the tanker ban.
On Tuesday, a Conservative motion will ask MPs if they support the construction of one or more pipelines to a port on the British Columbia coast and an appropriate adjustment to the northern BC coast oil tanker ban. Words ripped right from the Ottawa-Alberta pipeline agreement. A political conundrum one Liberal MP recognizes.
If it's a yes vote, it might look like we don't take seriously our requirement to consult with BC and First Nations. And if it's a no vote, it might look like we're not serious about the pipeline.
While the vote is non-binding and can't bring the government down, cabinet ministers were tight-lipped on what the Liberals will do.
Mr. Champagne, how are you going to vote on the Conservative pipeline motion tomorrow?
I don't have the exact count, but we'll certainly be in the House here to fight for Canadians.
The Natural Resources Minister contending the motion misses key environmental portions of the agreement, like an increased industrial carbon.
All right, where's the video I was looking for? Is this it? Oh yeah, this is it.
Hello.
Even before the vote, the Liberals went on the attack.
It's a cynical ploy to divide us. It's a cheap political stunt.
They like to talk about pipelines. They don't like to talk about climate change and climate action.
Blistering criticism of the Conservative Opposition Day motion that originally just talked about building an oil pipeline to the BC North Coast and amending the oil tanker ban. But Pierre Poilievre heard some of the concerns.
We're going to amend our own motion in order to include the things that Liberals claim we left out.
That included recognition of some Indigenous rights and the need to build a carbon capture and storage project, but it missed key elements for the Prime Minister.
He hasn't acknowledged yet the need for an industrial carbon price or the reduction in methane, two things that the Premier of Alberta acknowledged.
Please rise.
Mr. Scheer.
The non-binding motion failed, but it was largely a political ploy by the Conservatives to try and show cracks within the Liberal caucus.
He wants to pretend that he supports a pipeline like the majority of Canadians just long enough to get through the next election, while he quietly whispers to his Keep It in the Ground caucus, it will never happen.
Divisions that, according to the Natural Resources Minister, don't exist.
People can have issues with particular pieces, but we are supportive of the entire MOU.
You are supportive, but there are many of your other caucus members who are not supportive.
The caucus is supportive of the entire MOU. People, yes.
Tim Hodgson seemingly forgetting that former Culture Minister Stephen Guilbeault quit cabinet over the Alberta-Ottawa deal last week, writing in a Toronto Star op-ed on Tuesday, the environmental concessions in the deal is a grand bargain that feels like a fire sale. Unease that is shared by other Quebec and BC Liberals and North Coast BC First Nations.
We've never supported the pipelines or the tanker traffic.
It just seems all so silly to me. The Conservatives could have went to the table with the entire motion of the MOU, put it all together, and the Liberals still would have voted no. I think that would have been a good way to expose them. All right, how about we dive into some of these news headlines here. This one coming from Global News. Liberals defeat Pierre Poilievre's pipeline motion. Insists they back the future project. Yeah, right. We ain't ever getting a pipeline, people. Not under a Liberal government. That's for damn sure. Let's take a look at this video here.
Discover the 2026 Honda Civic Hybrid. The crossroads of power and efficiency. It's Canadian built with impressive performance and ready to redefine your drive.
Canada needs a pipeline to the Pacific to sell $30 billion of our energy overseas, outside of the U.S. market, making us more independent, self-reliant, our dollar, and therefore Canadians' purchasing power stronger. The Prime Minister always opposed the pipeline, which his party killed, but last week he flip-flopped and promised while he was in Alberta in a deal that he would build such a pipeline. So I took the very wording right out of that deal and put it into a motion before the House of Commons. He experienced a massive rebellion in his own caucus, but if he's going to vote against his own words, how can Canadians ever believe his words?
As the Canadian national cricket team knows, you got to play the whole T20.
Canadian national cricket team. Just so you guys heard that correctly. What are we doing here?
It's not just a couple of overs. It's not just the pipeline. It's not just pathways. It is a price on industrial price on carbon that goes to $130 effective. It is reductions in methane. It is net zero 2050. It is building Alberta strong, Canada strong, durable, sustainable.
I took the wording for the motion right out of his deal. And if he votes against the motion, he's voting against a pipeline to the Pacific. He's voting against overriding the discriminatory and anti-Canadian ban on shipping our energy abroad. He's voting against consultation with the First Nations people and the British Columbia government, and he's even voting against his own beloved carbon capture and storage, all of which I took word for word right out of his own deal. So if the Prime Minister is only in favor of pipeline when he's in Alberta, but against when he's in BC and Ottawa, how can Canadians even keep track of where he stands on anything?
I would like to welcome the fact that to my hearing, for the first time ever in this House, the Leader of the Opposition has acknowledged the constitutional right of Indigenous people to full, free, and for the first time he's ever acknowledged the role of the provinces in these pipelines. But he hasn't acknowledged yet the need for an industrial carbon price or the reduction in methane, two things that the Premier of Alberta acknowledged, signed wholeheartedly as part of a complete meal.
Not only do we acknowledge the obligation to consult with our First Peoples, we put that right in the motion. It's right there. It's right there, Mark. We put it right there so that he could vote for the words that he put in the agreement. Well, let's be honest. He never planned to honor the agreement. He whispered quietly to the Keep It in the Ground Liberal caucus, "Don't worry, there will never be a pipeline. We'll delay it until after the election, and then, God forbid, if we win," he says he would kill it altogether. Why can't he say one thing to all Canadians and champion the pipeline with us today?
The MOU between the Government of Canada and the province of Alberta is about a pipeline It is about carbon capture and storage. It is about interties with the clean electricity grid of British Columbia. It's about artificial intelligence data centers. It is about an industrial carbon price that works. It is about methane regulations that get methane down 75% so that we can have the lowest emission, low risk, lowest cost oil in the world and build this country.
We put the interties proposal right in the motion, right out of his deal. We put the carbon capture right in the motion, right out of his deal. We put the pipeline and the overriding of the oil shipping ban right in the motion. It came right out of the deal that he signed. So now it's clear that the only thing he really cares about is that it doesn't include an industrial carbon tax that will drive jobs out, drive grocery prices up. Why is it that he wants a carbon tax without a pipeline when what we really need is a pipeline without a carbon tax?
The grand reveal has been made. Mr. Speaker, I'm not a lifelong member of this House, so I don't know all the rules, but I don't think there's a limit on the size of motions. And in fact, since the MOU is already translated, I think it would be very easy to take the entire MOU in both official languages and propose them if the members opposite would support everything that the Premier of Alberta has done.
That's a very good question.
Yep. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think Pierre should just put the whole MOU inside of the motion, or do you think Carney should just shut up and put up? All right, what else we got? House defeats Poilievre pipeline motion after Liberals call it a political stunt. Everyone's calling it a political stunt. It's funny, huh? All these 3 different news outlets all saying it's an insult and immature. And a political stunt. Weird.
The latest breaking news coming in from there, and an update to a story we've been tracking on the Conservative pipeline motion. Let's bring in CTV's Rachel Euler, who is standing by with more. Hi, Rachel. We now have the results of that vote. How did it all play out?
Yeah, good evening. So the Conservative amendment and the main motion were just defeated, Akshay, by a vote of 139 yeas to 196 nays. That was seeing the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc voting against the Conservative proposal. So after a day of dramatic procedural wrangling here on Parliament Hill, a proposal, an amendment to the proposal, the Liberals saying all of this essentially is just a political stunt from the Conservatives. The House of Commons has rejected this motion, which called for the House to acknowledge the MOU between Alberta and the federal government and to indicate a support for Alberta-based pipeline to the West Coast.
So talk to us, Rachel. What led to all of this? What did the Conservatives really gain from this motion?
Yeah, so this was the last opposition day for the Conservatives of this year. So this was their final attempt, essentially, Akshay, to pressure Prime Minister Mark Carney and his Liberals about some of the divisions we've been hearing about within his caucus about where certain MPs might stand on the MOU with Alberta. So they took wording directly from the MOU, put it into a motion, and wanted to have MPs vote clearly, yay or nay, do they support this? But the Liberals were pretty quick to say, not so fast. Essentially, there was a lot more in that MOU than there is in that motion, and we don't want to cherry pick and indicate support for parts of it without recognizing others, which is kind of what prompted the Conservatives midday today to bring forward that amendment, putting some additional wording around what Alberta's committed to about consulting with British Columbia into the motion. But I think the key omission continually from the Conservatives was any mention of Alberta agreeing to an industrial carbon price. And ultimately, Akshay, that was what the Liberals were able to point to and saying that is still not in there. That is something you will probably not ever see this Conservative government indicate support for, and so we're going to be voting against.
All right, we leave it at that tonight then. CTV's Rachel Euler reporting from Ottawa. Rachel, thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
All right, so let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think we're actually going to get a pipeline under a Liberal government, or is that just a dream at this point? Will we have to vote him out and get a Conservative guy in there? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I seen this funny photo today. It says, Canada is not for sale, but I am. Danielle Smith released her new hats. Thought that was pretty funny and sad but true. I don't think if we can't get a pipeline deal done in the near future, Alberta's going to be gone. Send all of our oil to the U.S. and we're not going to get anywhere. So thanks for watching today's video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.